It's Thanksgiving, but there are some games we're really not thankful for. Welcome to Tabletop Shop.
Hello, perusers of the internet, and welcome back to the Tabletop Shop Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Nate Clark, and seated across the table from me this episode is your other co-host, Mr. Cody Pennington.
I'm just surprised that you got that right this time. Not just the introducing me,
But that you're sitting across the table instead.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. What I used to do, I always sat across the city, and then the one episode we recorded together, I still sat across the city to keep up the illusion that we were not in the same room, which I don't know why that was a necessary thing to do. I felt like it was, and then you totally exposed me.
Yeah, I just messed it up.
Yeah. All right.
We've like moved from being across the city to across the room to now across
literally
the table.
across the table. This is our first
crazy.
time having eye contact while we do a podcast.
It's kind of weird. I'm a little bit
You're
uncomfortable.
You're
if I'm
doing
being
too much
honest.
eye contact.
Okay.
now. All right.
Well, what am I supposed to look at? Yeah, I'm going to
Just
look at
the computer.
the copy of Catan over there.
That's
that I'm
a
selling.
terrible printing of Catan. Okay. This is a podcast about board games, as you might have figured out by the fact that we just mentioned Catan. It will probably be the...
Catan.
Ooh, it might not be the last time Catan's mentioned in this podcast.
Really?
But we'll find out.
Oh, those are some bold statements you make in there.
We'll find, but not to the audience. They don't know why.
Okay.
They don't know why.
All right.
So
yeah, you don't even know what's coming, guys.
They do not know what's coming. So
You're in for a treat this Thanksgiving season day.
actually, this is the day before Thanksgiving.
Wow. I mean,
That's
it's
crazy.
actually not, but for you listening on the day it's released, congratulations. It's almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you'd be smelling that turkey already. Yeah. Okay. Well, what?
Okay, well, let me stop you there. Is that a standard item you really smell on Thanksgiving?
Turkey.
It's turkey?
Turkey?
I feel like you're going to
stuffing.
be smelling stuffing.
Yeah, it's
or
stuffing.
Maybe some
Gravy.
taters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to set the record straight.
Okay, and probably also the turkey though.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. We're gonna do a lot of talk about board games, and we're gonna start by going over maybe what we played this week, Cody.
Indeed. Why are you saying maybe? You implying that I didn't play any games
That's
this week?
exactly what I'm implying.
Nate, we literally played a game after we recorded our last episode, so I was already in the runnings for having played games.
We did?
in time for the. We played Scythe digitally right
Aha,
after we finished.
I didn't add that to my list.
So now you have another one. You're welcome.
I do.
So who we start? Should I start?
Yeah, you already did.
Okay, well that's great. Nate, I played Scythe this week and I won.
You did win. You schooled me pretty good, actually.
Just want to set the record straight. I don't remember what the score was. What were our factions? I had Crimea and you had
Rusviet. Yeah.
A stellar matchup. It's a good combo.
It is. Yeah.
Anyway,
Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably either know what Scythe is or you've played it multiple times.
Yeah.
There's not very many people who haven't at this point that are
Nothing else to
seeking out
say.
board game podcasts. There's not very many people. I feel like I could be wrong. I could get roasted.
For those
over
of
this.
you who haven't played it, or for those of you who haven't heard,
Oof.
Scythe is a great game.
Yeah,
That's all
it's
we got
legendary.
to say. Basically, what kind of started off my collections of
Both
board
of ours,
games.
really. I mean, you're the one
Really?
who bought it, but it's the one that inspired
that's right.
both of us.
Sure. We
Yeah.
played games before that point, but that was when I really started getting into games and collecting with Scythe. But enough about that. I also played, and you also played, Arc Nova
That was
for
before.
the first time.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Are
Because we
you
talked
sure?
about it ad nauseum last podcast.
We did.
But you played it again.
Why did I...
You played it again. You and Kirsten played
I
it.
have it marked as I played twice
No, that's a
since
lie.
then, but yeah, I guess it was just once.
It's a bold-faced
Yeah.
lie.
Well, I played Arc Nova
Yeah.
since our last podcast.
Was it better than the first experience?
It was. Probably because I had a bigger score than one.
I thought you were 0 last time, actually.
No, I was 1.
You were 1. Okay.
Which, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Arc Nova, it's got a weird scoring system, and I don't know. Only having played a couple of games, my guess is that in the long run, if you have multiple players, somebody's going to have positive points, somebody's going to be barely positive, and somebody's going to have negative points. So that's just to set the record straight for the kind of scores you can expect from Arc Nova.
Unless it's a very tight game the whole way through. Then
Yes.
you'll probably all be positive.
Which is what happened last game. Because your winning score the first time we played was 18, if I recall.
Maybe.
It was like 18-1 to negative something. And then when Kirsten and I played last time for just a 2-player game, she won with 42, and I had 34, I think.
Yeah, that's a much closer matchup. The weird thing about Arc Nova is I feel like while you're playing the game, the first half of the game, maybe in the first 3 quarters, you're not really thinking about moving up too much on the tracks. You're just thinking about building a good
Yeah, you got to get
ecosystem,
your
if you will.
base established.
Yeah, and then the kind of the last quarter of the game, you're like, okay, I got to get that appeal and I got to get the conservation points, you know.
And hopefully the engine I laid down is going to pay off.
Yeah. Great game.
Fantastic game. Maybe you can talk more about it. I don't know. And finally, I played Wingspan.
Of course. What else is new?
I feel kind of bad mentioning it because it's so easy to pull out and play digitally. I'm probably going to have it every
Almost
time.
like it doesn't even count.
I know. So maybe we should just have a little stamp of approval. Wingspan is in here.
It's just a shoe
whenever Cody plays.
Yeah. Checks out.
So that's what I got. What have you played, man?
Oh, kind of the usual. So Scythe, like you mentioned, lost in that. Technically, it was digital. Not that matters. Played Terraforming Mars twice and lost both times.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. I think I lost to my dad once and lost to my brother once.
Which was worse? Which do you feel worse about?
Oh, always losing my dad. So my Reagan is a natural at this game. Like,
so
it's one of these games where he just kind of automatically wins at least 75% of the games he plays of it. My dad, okay, this is a funny story. My dad is so infamously bad at this game that the three of us were playing it a lot. And my dad was literally never won. He had not won once. And Reagan and I made a bet, and we were like, okay, the first game that dad wins, where all three of us are playing, whoever gets last place in that game has to buy dinner for the other two people.
Oh, no.
So it was a bet between Reagan and I. Like, whenever dad finally wins this game, whoever loses between us has to buy dinner for dad and the other person.
I feel bad for your dad that bet had to exist.
It's embarrassing.
That's kind of sad.
Of course, it ended up being Reagan that actually got last when my dad won. So that was pretty legendary.
So you're in the clear then.
Oh, yeah. He already paid for him. We already got nice seafood dinner and everything from Reagan.
Well, what'd you get? What'd you get exactly?
It was McGrath's Fish House. I got clam chowder. And,
Was this agreed upon beforehand that it was going to be somewhere nice?
Actually.
Really?
So it was that.
No pulling wing stop on me.
Mickey D's. All right. Yeah. Played Dune Imperium again. I feel like I play that a lot these days.
Yeah.
A great game of Dune Imperium. 3-player game. My dad and I tied for 12 points, which is 2 above the benchmark. And I won on a 3-2 spice tie.
Wow.
Because spice is the tiebreaker.
That's so tight.
It was, and the reason I won is because I had a spice must flow in my hand that I revealed on my last turn, and it just gave me a spice. And that was what sent me.
Do you not get the point until you play it?
No, you get the point when you buy it.
Oh.
But it also, the only thing that card does is give you a spice on a reveal turn. You can't use any agents. It doesn't give you any of the bonuses.
So it gave you the tiebreaker.
And it gave me the tiebreaker spice on my last turn.
Sweet.
Yeah, great game.
How many points did the third person get?
Reagan, like 7. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious I want to see a Dune Imperium game with more than 2 people where everyone's 10 points or higher. That would be legendary.
Insane. That would be insane. Oh, okay. But you know what's actually cool about this game also? So you have the 4 faction tracks that you're trying to move up.
Yeah.
I was all the way up on one of them. And on the other 3 tracks, I had 0 influence on 2 of them and 1 influence on the other one. And I still won the game with 12 points.
Interesting. So you're definitely prioritizing in other places then.
Okay, one thing that helped me is I bought this tech tile that, because this is with the Rise of X expansion, I bought a tech tile that gives you a point at the end of the game for every influence track where you are 1 or lower on that track.
I remember that
So
one.
it gave me 3 points at the end of the game.
So it's basically worth it at that point.
Yes.
Because you save all those steps of trying to advance.
But the weird thing is the spots over there are also really good. And so if you haven't moved up on those tracks, it means you haven't been going on those spots either. But I was using the Rise of X expansion a lot more in that game than the base stuff. And worked out pretty well.
Okay, panned out.
Lastly,
respect to expansions that let you win in different ways.
Yeah, it's an expansion where you can still win focusing on the core mechanics. And obviously you can still win utilizing the expansion.
Yeah.
And we all use that shipping track and involves a lot, all 3 of us. So I like to see that.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. And lastly, I actually played Elysium. 2-player game of Elysium using the starting deck.
Nice.
It's a card drafting game. Kind of like maybe a minor engine building game. Because anything that's in your domain before you put it in your Elysium is kind of engine building stuff. Yeah. But then it's set collection too, I would say. That's how you really score points.
Sweet.
And it was okay. I want to mix in the more complicated factions. I haven't played with like Ares and Poseidon. Ares and like, I don't know, a couple of the other ones.
I haven't played with any of those, so let me know how they are.
So you've only played with the starter 5?
Just the base ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only played like 2 games of it.
Right. Okay.
But,
well, I was teaching the game to somebody, so I hadn't played in like, I don't know, a while. So we just played with the base 5 again, but I want to play again and
nice.
Yeah, mix some different cards in. So that is it for me. 4 games and 5 plays.
Interesting. Well, I think I'm hitting you up with 3 games and 5 plays.
Haha.
Or is it?
Well, this is getting boring quickly. All right. We should move on and talk about our game of the week.
Our game
Cody.
of the week.
What is our game of the week?
This is the transition music
Right.
part.
Cody, what is our game of the week?
Oh, it's such a beautiful game. Such a wonderful game. I don't know why I'm approaching it with this kind of voice. I feel like it just...
You're giving me some weird eyes right now.
It needed some sort of extra respect. Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Indeed.
Did
Or
you also...
if you're Rodney Smith, Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Wow, that's just again, just like completely calling somebody out. No shame. All right, Cody.
He deserves it.
Did you also think this was a game about ducks until you bought it?
You know, I don't think I did. It's kind of sad that I had to think so hard about that, but I heard a lot more of the title of this game before I ever heard anything actually about this
And
game.
you never thought it was about ducks?
For some reason, no.
How?
You know, maybe in the history of it, but
The thing is, okay, the word quack as a slang term for like a crazy doctor or whatever
Sure.
is not common anymore either.
well, that's the thing. I didn't really interpret it that way, and I kind of forgot about the term of a quack
So
doctor.
what did you think the game
For
was
some
about?
reason, in my head, quacks just seemed to me like, I don't know, hillbillies or rednecks or just some silly boys.
No, that's the next
Yeah.
expansion.
or maybe slightly insane. You know, that to me, that's
Okay,
that was a
okay.
quack. I know that's kind of wrong, but that's what I
it's
thought.
not
it was.
100% wrong.
Sort of wrong.
It's still the crazy part makes sense.
Yeah.
To be a quack, like it seems to make sense
Yeah,
intuitively that to be a quack is to be a little like odd.
That's
crazy.
just what it is.
Yeah, but specifically doctors. But then the game is not really. It's like witch doctors, I guess. Then it's all.
Well,
like,
you are a quack doctor, is what
that-
you are. You're,
okay.
you're brewing up potions and stuff to give to the people, and one of the expansions actually is all about completing contracts to help specific ailments. But I didn't get that one.
But there is one that has witches, which is
Yes,
the one you do have.
the herb witches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're sourcing ingredients from witches
I guess so.
and doing them favors, maybe because they have like little side bonuses.
for-
Which is actually it's a great expansion. Like we don't need to talk about
It is an
expansions yet
excellent
until
expansion.
we maybe cover what the game actually
probably should
is
do
and how
that.
it works. It's a good expansion though.
You want to describe the
Yeah,
Quacks
so it's
of Quedlinburg?
primarily a bag building game. It's a push your luck bag building game where you have this pot and you draw these tiles out of your pot with different numbers and colors, and you're just placing them in your pot based on whatever number you draw. And you are trying to see how far you can get around your pot, because the further you get, the more points you'll get and the more spending power you'll get. But of course, it can go wrong because it's a push your luck game. So there's these white tiles you can draw that if you draw a total of more than 7, like face value, not 7 tokens, but face value of 7 or more of more than 7, your pot explodes and you get a serious. You either get points or spending power.
Yep.
Which is a serious, whatever you want to say, thing that slows you
Consequence?
down. Yeah, I mean consequence. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Pain.
It is a serious consequence because you're getting half of what you should be getting,
Yeah.
basically, which really sucks. So you play this over a series of like 12 rounds or something like that. 10, maybe.
I was going to say 9.
Yeah, something like that.
It's an odd number.
Yeah, and so in between every round, you're buying more tokens. And this might sound super boring right now, but there's like 6 or 7 different tokens you can buy that all have different powers.
Yes.
And
which is different
yes.
by the game.
Yeah, so the base game comes with at least 4 different powers for each color.
For 4 sets.
Yeah, 4 sets, right. And so what the red tokens and the orange tokens and the yellow tokens do will be different pretty much every game. And they all do pretty crazy things that they affect each other, and they minimize consequences, and they give you bonuses and play off each other well sometimes.
Sure.
And so there's this fun in between rounds. You use your buying power to buy a couple tokens. Then everything goes back in your bag and you all draw again. There's a lot of simultaneous actions in this game.
Which is pretty cool because
is.
even though you're playing 9 rounds, it goes pretty fast. Because for the most part, you're just
Yeah,
you're
it's
doing
like a
everything on your
45
own
minute
time.
game tops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with 2, it probably
which
like
is
30
which
minutes.
is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And just dying. It's not a serious game though, right? Like it's not a game that you play super competitively.
I mean, it can be frustrating sometimes.
Well,
If
yes.
you have a great bag and then the first 4 tiles you pull out are all whites, and you're like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. You
Dang
can't
it.
take it too seriously.
But
It's like we
you-
were talking
but
about
you
last.
can.
It's like what we were talking about last week or a couple weeks ago about the Lord of the Rings card game.
sure.
It's like you do your best, you want to win, but ultimately your fate is not entirely in your hands. You know, like
it's a lot more in your hands than Lord of the Rings deck builder was.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can, it's all Lord of the Rings deck builder is just, oh look, I flipped over an ambush from the top deck and now I can't take a turn this turn.
Yeah, you can get super unlucky.
Yeah,
for sure.
Quacks I think is more of a bettering your odds kind of game, because for one, the more tiles you get, the more odds you have of drawing good tiles instead of the bad ones. And then if you can even tweak the types of tiles you get, those themselves can increase your odds to play off other ones. So
yes,
it still for sure is push your luck.
And there's definitely still strategy though.
Yes,
and the things
which I think is what makes it so appealing.
Yeah, it's a very light strategy game.
Yeah, it's a luck game that you feel like you have control over.
But it has that tense aspect of being a luck game, which some people like. I'm sure some people don't. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like, I want to minimize the amount of luck that's in my games as much as possible. They only want to play deterministic games, basically, where you have control over everything. And it's all about player interaction and strategy. But you know, most people, I feel like most board gamers don't always, even if that's their favorite kind of game, which I feel like you and I would probably kind of fall into that category.
Closer, yeah.
Like the less luck, the better. You don't always want to play a super intense 2-hour, like, you know, heavily strategic game. It's like sometimes you just want to kick back, play a fun, lighthearted, you know, game of just drawing tiles, making some cool decisions and seeing how far you can do, how good you can do. So I think it has its appeal for most board gamers who don't always want to be intensely board gaming. You know what I mean?
I would say the people who really want to minimize luck as much as possible, push your luck game is really not the kind of game for you. But for most,
by definition, it really isn't, right? But that's what I'm saying is I feel like both of us are that way. Like generally, it's like, you know, I respect games like Scythe and Kemet, you know, for having combat systems that aren't luck based, and there's not really the only luck is there's some minor card drawing, and everything else is all strategy, and you're kind of in control, and other people are in control, right? Generally, that's what I want out of a game. Yeah. I don't want to be at the mercy of the game all the time, because then it's like, am I playing the game or is the game playing me, really? You know, and deciding who wins.
Sure. The thing is, for Quacks, I know it's a push your luck game, but I don't really approach it feeling that way, because what excites me about the game is like, ooh, what sort of combination of tiles can I try to build in my bag this game? It's almost more of a puzzle you're trying to solve, as opposed to I'm just putting myself at the mercy of this interesting game.
I don't know if I would say puzzle, because a puzzle means that there is like a solution, you know, like a maze. A puzzle, it's like there can be a solution.
But mazes can have multiple solutions.
But the thing is, you'll never like, it's never like you get the perfect combo and you break the game or something. Like that's impossible. Ultimately, you are going to draw enough white tiles. So it always comes down to like, when do you cut off and when do you push your luck?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, for me, the puzzle is, okay, I have these red tiles that seem to play off well of these blue tiles, but I need to get at least one green tile in here to make those work. So you're kind of solving the recipe, as it were.
The weird thing is, I guess I do kind of approach the game that way, but not too much, because it's like, I still like to approach the game as like, I'm at the mercy of the bag. And it's like, if I feel like if I try to be too strategic about combos and stuff, it's like, yeah, but what are the odds I'm really going to draw the pieces that I need? And even in the right order, sometimes you need them. And it's like, I feel like I stay away. I feel like generally the pieces I buy, I stay away from pieces that have a linear reward system where it's like, if you do this and the next thing you draw is this, you get this. Or if you draw this tile, if the one before it was this, you get this. And it's like, I don't want that. I want tiles that have a power that's consolidated within themselves mostly. So I'm not dependent on what I draw next or what I drew before, because it's drawing, it's luck. And so I try and stay away from those tiles generally. Yeah. I feel like that got really deep. And
so Nate, do you have commitment issues?
Listen, I don't like to reduce my life to just drawing things out of a bag. So I feel like I don't.
I mean, sometimes life is like that, man.
Like a bag of potions and witches from herbs.
And you just pulling out.
Yeah.
And you see what comes.
I like the idea that there's just these crazy doctors that are trying to help people out, I guess, or maybe trying to rip people off.
But
and there's just like things are always exploding.
Well, it's like thematically, you can't decide what ingredients you're going to put in your recipe. You just,
no, it's not that you can't decide.
In advance, you buy a bunch of ingredients and then you just start dumping them in.
That's basically what it is. It's like, I'm just going to buy all these ingredients and then blindly throw things in
see what
until
happens.
I feel like stopping or until it blows up.
But then apparently you're reusing those ingredients over and over again.
Yeah, right?
You just keep getting
buy new
more.
ones. You repurpose them.
We're probably not doing the game justice by making fun of its thematics.
Well, I think we're both maybe conveying that we like the game a lot.
Oh, for sure.
And we both do like it a lot. I don't really know if we need to spend any time talking about drawbacks. I feel like there really aren't any negative aspects necessarily. It's just that there's a heavy luck aspect. And so a game like this would never rise super high on my like top 100 games of all time or whatever, because a heavy luck game is never going to be a favorite game of mine. Now, as a light game,
for me,
here's the thing. If I was going to do like my top 5 light strategy games, I feel like this would definitely be on that list.
Where is this on your top hundo?
It's somewhere in the 30s.
Okay. You want to guess where it is on my list?
17.
13.
Okay, so
This is pretty high on my list.
Well, and I guess if you're ranking your list majority on what you have fun doing, right?
For sure.
And so if this one hits that high, then it hits that high.
It do.
I'm checking. I think I actually might even be in the 20s.
Ooh, the 20s. That would be historic.
Quacks of Quedlinburg, 31.
Okay. Hey, good memory on where it's at in your list, man.
That's pretty good memory.
Pretty good.
So, but hey, I feel like the game is definitely worth checking out. It's honestly, unless you're a really heavy gamer, I feel like this is the first time I've said this on the podcast for a game that we've like specifically talked about. This is one that I would say go out on a limb and just buy it. Unless you really are a heavy gamer into war games or into highly deterministic games, high strategy games, and that's all you like, you're probably going to like this game.
I think so.
To some point or another. And it's easily accessible. If you have other family members or friends who don't really play games and you want them to, this is like the easiest thing to whip out and play with people and kind of get them into the hobby a little bit.
Yeah, it might take a little bit to play well, since you're going to have to memorize all the ingredients.
But then you have to like kind of stress the fact that it's not a super important game. It's not like you're like, oh, I have to win this game, you know? It's like, hey, we're just chilling. We're just playing. It's like, don't worry about it, Just buy whatever and see what happens. That's pretty much how I play anyways.
Just get some more crow's beaks.
That's the other thing I wanted to say before we move on, is that I feel like this game, at least from the games that we've played of it, it's like anybody could win. It's not like, I don't feel like that. That's why I feel like the luck aspect is pretty high, is because it's like going into this game between you, me, and Kirsten, it's like any given game, I feel like anybody could win.
Sure.
And usually about 3/4 into the game, who's going to win. They just start to pull ahead, and it's hard to catch up.
But the game does have a good balancing system with that. The whole rat tail.
It does actually,
section,
yeah.
Where if someone's doing well early on, then it's going to help balance the game for you and give you some advances in your own pot.
If you're behind, the people that are behind the person in first place get little bonuses to their pot for every round until, as long as they're behind. And once they're not behind anymore, then you don't get those bonuses.
Sure.
It is actually, I like games that have a catch-up mechanism in them.
More games need that.
And it's not an overpowered one. It's a very small thing that's just going to get you a little boost. But it could be occasionally a big thing. Like it could occasionally have a big impact. Most of the time, it's just a little boost to kind of help you out a little bit.
If that increases the amount of income you get for the round up by just enough to where you can get the perfect tile to throw in, and
the question
that can make
is,
a difference.
For catch-up mechanisms, would you prefer things that help the people behind or hurt the person in front?
I'd rather help the people that are behind, because say I am doing the best, I really want to feel like I'm earning what I'm doing, and I don't want to be punished for doing well.
Yeah.
I want to keep building upon what I'm
Also,
playing.
it makes the game more fun. Instead of one person being hurt, other people are being helped.
Exactly.
And so the game in general probably just has a nicer atmosphere than one person being kind of angry.
Yeah. And I won't say that I'm solid on that.
I feel like it
for
depends
all
on the game,
games.
depend on the system.
Because a lot of games are turn order. Like whoever's the farthest ahead and points is going to go last, and that's fine.
That usually works pretty well.
It's not really hurting the first person necessarily. It's just helping people behind him.
Yep. That's how Kemet is. Turn order. Person who's losing gets to pick turn order.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Respect.
All right. Well, we have kind of a unique board banter this week. It is another list, another top
good.
3. But our list this week is our top 3, as we alluded to at the beginning. Our top 3 greatest, I don't know, what would you say, greatest game purchase regrets? Is that where we're going?
Well, but we need to make this Thanksgiving themed. So I'm going with the top 3 game purchases we're least thankful for. All right. So how should we start this off? We're gonna start with your top, your number 3.
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
Actually, before we get into this, do you think? Okay, so before we get into what I want to say about this, we're really backtracking here.
Okay.
Do you know how many games that you and I personally have in our collection crossover? How many games we both own a copy of?
how many crossover games?
Yeah.
Are we going to go historical too, like games I may have owned?
No.
at some
Right
point but
now,
unsold?
currently, how many
Right
games do we
now.
each own of the same? And you can just take a wild guess instead of trying to think about it too much.
I'm going to go... Oh, man, it can't be that many. I'm going to say 4.
I believe it's 3.
Oh,
I believe
all right.
we
Well, there you
each.
go.
I did this like a week ago. I think we each own Underwater Cities,
Yup.
Castles of Burgundy,
Uh-huh.
and Furnace.
That's all?
I believe that's all. So my question to you now is: do you think there is any crossover on this list? And there are other games we've both owned in the past. Do you think there's any crossover on this list of our regrets, of purchase regrets?
I was thinking there'd be at least one.
At least you think there might be more than one?
One.
I
Well,
think there's max one.
when I first approached this, I think I forgot that the idea had to be games we ourselves purchased. And so I was just thinking of game regrets. And so in that line, I was thinking maybe there'd be a bit more crossover. I forgot that these are uniquely games that we've individually
Well,
purchased.
what do you mean? Like, what else would be?
I don't know, man. I don't know what my brain was thinking. It
Well,
was
you're
all
like listing games that I
confused and
own?
Stuff. No, just games, more games that were letdowns in general without the filter of we've individually purchased them.
Okay. But that's not what your list is based
No,
on.
no.
Okay.
I did it correctly, even though I was confused.
Yeah. I feel like even trades could fall into that category. Like if there was a game one of us traded the other person for and we were like, oh, I regret
I
this.
suppose so. If it was a trade, there was an
But
exchange
none
of
of
goods.
mine are. So
Okay, well, why'd you even bring that up, Nate?
maybe
Just
set up
wasting
your
our
short.
time here.
Okay,
Come
my
on,
number 3.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is a game we were both kind of disappointed by,
All right.
which is not
That
probably a
was my
surprise.
crossover guess. Go ahead.
Battlelore 2nd Edition.
That was not my crossover guess.
Battlelore 2nd Edition. I was super hyped up about this game. I watched a lot. I mean, Dice Tower was highly endearing of this game. Both Sam Healy and Tom Vassell were
Yeah, that guy.
spoke, yeah, whatever. Some other guy at the company spoke very highly of this game, and that I feel like I base a lot of my decisions on games that I am willing to try or
Sure.
buy off of their opinions. Him and Z and all those guys. I like to hear their opinions. They're very, very well informed. If you guys aren't familiar with the Dice Tower, which you probably are, if you're not, check them out on YouTube. Lots of great stuff. Kind of the pioneers in the board game media industry. But
The CNN of the board game.
I'm going to
except they're
discredit
honest.
them. I'm going to discredit them a little bit because I was highly let down by Battlelore. Or maybe I expected Battlelore 2nd Edition to be something more than it was. And what it really came down to was a somewhat tactical dice-based combat game. Heavily dice-based.
I'm not thinking of specifically of Battlelore, but that can easily happen in games where you think it's going to be a thing, or you've heard the basic description of how it functions, and then you play it and you're like, oh man.
Even if you've watched how it played, it's hard to actually understand. Like Battlelore 2nd Edition, I watched short segments of the game being played.
Sure.
Or it being explained how it's played, and it still didn't quite convey this, like, there's a lot of luck in this game.
We
There's
could
a lot of luck.
easily do a top 10 to top 15 game disappointments. Not necessarily that we purchased, but we thought was going to be fun, and then we played.
No, yeah,
It
we
was just a
definitely
letdown.
could.
There will be a board banter that's that, I'm sure.
For at some point in the future, yeah,
Yeah.
and it could be a lengthy one for sure.
Yeah.
But this one definitely fell into this category easily. It's based on Memoir 44, which people like a lot. Has the same combat system. I've actually played Memoir 44 now, before I played Battlelore, or after I played Battlelore, and it suffers from the same thing. It's like you could just get really bad rolls. I feel like it's worse in Battlelore 2nd Edition even than it is in Memoir. The rolling is. But it's rough in both games. And so they're not serious. They seem like, especially Memoir, it's like, oh, it's a war game. It's like, no, it's not. It's a dice rolling game. It's super Ameritrash. Like, yeah. And so is Battlelore.
The one game of it I played, I won, and I still walked away like, this is a stupid
Yeah, right?
game.
It's like you didn't feel like you earned it, probably.
No.
It's like, yeah. So.
Just rolled some stuff.
But there are some tactics. I'm not trying to completely trash the game. If you like dice-based combat and you like fantasy medieval war, like, yeah, give it a shot, I guess, you know? But it's not super, like, there's a lot of stuff out of your control. So
I respect that.
That's my number
even though I don't respect the game.
yeah, right?
I respect your opinion.
That's why
on
you
the
respect
game.
the pick.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. Hitting up number 3 for me is The Crew, Quest for Planet 9.
Really?
Now, this is in the top 100 on Board Game Geek.
So is the other one.
What is it, like 40
Deep Blue,
something?
other. Deep Blue. The other, both of the crew games are in the top 100.
Deep Blue, whatever nonsense is
Deep
a little bit
Sea
lower.
Blue diving boys.
But this had some hype behind it, man. Like I heard a lot of people talking about
Heavy
this,
hype.
especially I think it was the for the year of 2021, so probably released in 2022, like the Dice Tower Top 100, I feel like most of the guys had it pretty high on their list. They're like, the Cruise question is like, it's great. And Tom Vassell especially loves this. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And it's so cheap. Look how small it is. It's like $15. I played it. And this is just a like deck of cards. That's all it is. It's a deck of cards.
It's a unique approach.
Game.
You have to say it's a unique approach to a trick-taking game.
Cooperative, yeah.
The concept was way oversold and way overhyped.
And way detached from the thematics. It's like,
I'm in
space
no thematic type
and
whatsoever.
I can't communicate.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely not an essential for space travel is communication, so we're gonna
I was not a fan of this game either. I didn't buy it, but I played it with you guys we played a few missions.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they get maybe more fun as you go along, but it's like the hook is not there.
Just
for
wasn't
me.
there.
Generally, I don't like cooperative games anyways. And then a themeless cooperative trick-taking game.
That's just a deck of cards that it's just rethemed.
There's just
it's like 1 through 10
me.
and they're colored differently. And
so this is your number 3, man.
This is my number 3. I'd much rather go and play Pinochle. Have you played Pinochle?
Yeah, a
good
bit.
game.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, you're getting excited about something.
Well, I was excited. You're gonna have a heavy-hitting list if that's already your number 3.
I have
that's
a heavy
bad
hitting
purchase.
I have been hurt, Nate. I have been hurt in the board game world, and I'm ready to tell you about it.
My number 2, it's not really similar to that, but it's a similar type of game. It's a 2-player trick-taking game called Claim.
I've
I
never
was
even heard of this.
super interested in this game. So my fiance and I both like trick-taking games. We've played a few different ones. We're both big fans of them. And I was like, whoa, a 2-player trick-taking game. That's unique, because generally trick-taking games, it's like everybody's putting in a card, and then a person who has the best card based on whatever kind of guidelines wins the pool.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is a 2-player game. Like, how is that going to work? But I watched reviews on it. It seemed like a pretty novel concept. And I bought the game, and we played it a couple times, and it was like, what? It was just so boring. Like, mind-numbingly boring.
So what sucks about it? Like, how's it function?
Well, okay, the way it functions, I haven't played it in a while now, so I might not get everything right here. But basically, you each have like half the deck, and you have cards with special powers. Like there's different races. There's like 4 or 5 different races, and they all do different. They have different rules about
races being suits, basically.
Yeah, but it's themed like as different actual races.
Okay.
And they all have different rules, like the ways that they win the trick or they do certain things for you. And it's a unique concept where you each play. So every single round, you each play a card. Whoever wins gets it. And then, I don't remember well enough. There's some unique concept about there's like a first
half
half of the
like
game.
an incredible game.
So bad.
I was so excited.
Completely forgot. There's like a first half of the game and a second half of the game.
Okay.
And something happens in the first half. I can't even. You know what? If you're interested in a 2-player
There's a first
game,
half and there's a second half.
Just
and
go look it
different
up.
things happen in each half.
If you think you might be interested in it, just go look it up. But I will say, I feel like I should have bought Fox in the Forest instead, which is also a 2-player
That's a game
trick-taking
that's
game.
never interested me. I always see like, oh, that looks pretty. Oh, it's cards. It's a trick-taking game.
It's a 2-player trick-taking game, and it's rated much higher than Claim is. And I was actually balancing both of those. Like, which one do I buy? I went for Claim because it felt like the more unique concept of the two, which I have completely forgotten. And I feel like it was the wrong choice for sure. Yeah, not a fan.
Fox
of the
in
game.
the Forest is ranked higher, I would assume.
Much higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds like a terrible experience.
Yeah, dude. It was very, very disappointing experience. Yeah.
So far, trick-taking games are not hitting well on our list, it seems
My
like.
last one is not. So
Okay, sweet. Number 2 for me, and it hurts to say this, Firefly Shiny Dice.
Oh, that doesn't. I mean, okay. Go ahead.
It hurts because respect to Firefly.
Yes, nothing but respect.
I guess I should clarify for my list. I wasn't necessarily ranking this list based on how bad the game was. It was more how excited I was and then how much I was let down.
How much did you
by the
regret
game?
that purchase?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I'm least thankful for it. So, Firefly Shiny Dice. Here's the sad
There's a
thing
good story
that it's number
behind
2
this.
on my list. I played this game with some friends. And then I bought it.
Okay, I did not
And then
know that.
I started to...
That's
so
pretty sad.
It's on me.
That's 100%
Okay,
on
I will
you.
say they had taught us to play it wrong. I don't remember exactly, but like I was going through the rulebook after, and there were like 1 or 2 rules.
Well, maybe
that
they
were
taught you a
little bit
better way to play it.
They
than-
probably did. That's probably why I enjoyed it more. But no, why I got so excited about it is because I looked it up on Amazon. I'm like, this is $10. It's a Firefly themed game. It's $10. I have to buy it. And I bought it like that day, that evening, while I was still playing games with those friends.
Wow. Okay.
And then the game arrived.
All right. I'm still on board.
Then I played it, Nate.
Okay. All right.
And then I played it maybe a second time.
Oh, okay.
And it's just that little spark in my heart just sort of fizzled out.
But
like
why,
it just
Cody?
fell in a big old pond and it just got skaplooshed. Because the game is garbage, Nate.
It's not because of the theme.
That's why. No, not the theme is excellent, and it even has some pretty cool player mats. They kind of look like little mouse pads, but they're all printed on, and there's little sections where you put your dice. But the game, it has this really stupid mechanism.
This is the good story, right?
There's supposed to be missions that you're completing, right? So you take I think it's like 15 different dice. Some of them are crew member dice, some of them are passenger dice, and some of them are enemy dice. You roll all of them, and then you assign all the dice, and then you have this reroll and activate powers section where you can choose to reroll some of the dice to try to make them a little bit better.
Based on what knowledge?
And then some of those dice, their effects as they're rolled will let you maybe reroll a different die. So you do all this, and then you flip over the card from the mission deck that requires a certain combination of dice to complete it.
It's insane.
How is it a mission if I just do random stuff and then I flip over the objective to see if I accidentally qualified for it?
Absolutely
what
insane.
Garbage. So I looked this up.
That is not a game, by the way.
I looked this up, and the designer of the game, he didn't intend for it to be that way. The publisher switched it on him and made the objectives be flipped after. It's like, why would you do that?
I really want an explanation.
I want to talk to the executive who decided
publishers just have this thing for the Firefly IP where they're like, oh, wow, this looks good. Let's screw it over as much as we possibly can.
So sad. I'm worked up now, man.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you, dude.
I need to go take a break.
And it makes you so angry that it has the Firefly theme, too. Right? It's like
it's just further disrespect.
A good theme and you just ruined it. You just raked it through the mud.
And I didn't really even want to sell it just because it looks cool. Like the box cover is sort of an artistic rendition of all the people from Firefly just sitting at a table. Jane's even got his little orange beanie hat with the dangly things. Yeah. So number 2 in games I'm least thankful for.
I feel like our number ones might be the same. Is this the one you think is crossover?
I think it is. I'll let you go first, though. What you got, man?
Chronicles of Crime.
No.
Oh, okay.
This is a game you're least thankful for.
I'm wondering what you think our other one is. All right, well, we'll see.
I'm surprised that what I was thinking of isn't on our list.
This is interesting. Okay, so Chronicles of Crime, I'll say two things, two big things about it that were huge letdowns.
Okay.
The first of all was the theme of the first mission is unbelievably dark and grotesque and disturbing. It's about harvesting. Okay, this is a game where you're like solving crimes or whatever, la-da-da-da-da, kind of like maybe a little Sherlock-y, whatever. The first like 3-part mission is literally about this like crime syndicate, this black market syndicate, whatever, that is harvesting children's organs from an orphanage. That's what it's about. And like, I thought this was marketed as like kind of a family, like, hey, huddle around, solve a crime kind of a game. It's like, hey, little Billy got dragged into the dungeon of the orphanage and they took his organs out and sold them on the black market. Whoop-de-doo. Like, what is this? This is not enjoyable. But that's just personal preference, right?
Sure.
I didn't like the really dark theme. And there's other missions. There's lots of expansions that I would assume aren't as dark.
Hopefully.
Well, I wouldn't know because I never played any other ones. But I did do the first 3 missions. We completed the storyline for that first one. The game also, the way, so it's like special because it's like, it's heavily integrated with the app where you scan, whenever you want to talk to somebody or ask a question or go to a place, you scan it on your phone using the app. And then it'll give you some information on there. That's how you communicate with people. Everything goes through that. That was a complete disconnect from the thing for me. 100%. I think some people, they really like the integration. Other people probably feel the same way as me, where it's like, I feel like I'm just on my phone half the time just reading text. And it's like, what? It's a complete disconnect from a board game experience for me, and I did not enjoy that at all. It's like, I'm always just hovering my phone over stuff, trying to scan QR codes and then reading text.
Sure. And
then like, all right, well, what do we want to scan next? 100% did not work for me.
I kind of get that. I didn't really think of it in that light, the concept of it using the phone app so much detracting from the board game experience. Thinking back on it, I do feel a little bit that way. But overall, I still appreciated how that functioned. I like being able to, let's say I'm investigating and talking to a certain suspect. If I want to ask them about other things we may have came across, I just scan the thing I want to ask them about, and then the game has all these pre-programmed
responses. And it's a unique
responses.
concept, for sure. And it's very interactive.
Sure.
It did not work for me though, at all.
What
Not
about
at all.
the 3D crime scenes?
Those were
It's pretty cool, right? Yeah.
They were pretty cool. So there's this game called Clue DVD. Came out in like '06.
Sounds like garbage.
Back when every board game had a DVD version. It's actually incredible. If you like Clue, you need to see if you can find a copy of this version of the game called
good.
Clue DVD.
I'm good, man.
It's like way better than the original Clue. It's like integrated with like, it has things like this though. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because you mentioned the 3D crime scenes, which is basically, it puts you in a room and at the crime scene, and you use your phone to like look around and pick up clues, whatever.
Sure.
This Clue DVD has a very similar thing where you like go to some place at the mansion and you have to it asks you a couple questions after you like analyze it, whatever. So, I did think that was a cool thing. I liked it. That was probably my favorite part of the game, actually.
Okay.
Chronicles of Crime.
So it spoke to you for a microsecond.
Yeah, I was like, and it was another thing. It was like there were multiple things that were cool and unique and innovative, but ultimately, like the game didn't feel. I don't know. It's not really a board game, actually. It's an activity.
It does have a board.
Yeah, it does, but it's like it's more of
it.
just like a group activity, which is fine for what it is.
Sure.
But
That's actually one thing I appreciate about the game is that you can play it with more than just 4 people, even more than 5. Sure, it gets kind of hard because like only one person has the phone at a time, but you can still kind of pull it out as in a group event.
I think it worked well at 2 or 3 probably. So now I'm interested because you think your number 1 is a crossover, which means it's a game I own or owned. And
I'm surprised you can't guess what this is, man.
Oh,
you forgot, didn't you?
Actually, no, I didn't. I didn't forget about it.
Okay,
go ahead. I'll speak my piece in a second.
Era of Kingdoms. Yeah. We've referenced this mockingly, probably at least a couple of times so far in the podcast,
and many times on our YouTube channel, Way Brothers.
Yes, we gave a not very sparkling review for the game. Michael Arisman, if you're listening to this podcast, I know it's hard to be a board game designer, and I respect you, and so I'm sorry that I don't like your game. Please take this with a grain of salt. But Era of Kingdoms, man, remember, I told you that my basis here is not on the quality of the game necessarily, but on how disappointed I was. Yeah. And this was I believe both of our first and only Kickstarter that we funded for a game.
Yep.
It was early on to our board game funding.
Before you owned Scythe, even, maybe?
I guess, it was before that.
It was weird. It
was like in this weird middle point.
It was before we were in the hobby at all.
Yeah.
Which is probably why we made such a bad mistake.
And I think it was probably my fault because I found this somehow, must have been on Facebook or something, random, and it was described as like a combination of Catan and Dominion, which at the time I was like, I love Catan.
And ultimately, I love Dominion. Like almost nothing
it's
like either of those
none of either of those things. Anyway, but we invested into it, supported the game. We did the tier where you can name one of the cards.
Yeah,
and so we have
the
Way Brothers Trade Goods is still in there.
Yeah.
Even though I got rid of the game, I kept that card just because I want to keep it.
Wait, did you sell the game and keep the card?
I think I literally scrapped it for board game pieces.
I don't know that's fair.
Yeah.
What?
Even though there's not many pieces. There's boards. Yeah, I can print over the boards or something. But anyway, we're excited about this game. Like, this is going to be so cool. And we spent like over a year just waiting for it to be fulfilled and finally got it and played it. And then that same spark just like slowly sank.
Here's why I didn't make my list. I think it sank a lot faster for you than it did for me. I probably played this game 15 times before I realized, it's not that good actually. Mm-hmm. But I played it. Like my family, like when I got this game, like we were playing it like a few times a day for like a week straight. Yeah.
Now, do you think that was influenced not so much by the fun of the game, but because you were invested in the game, you supported it, and
partially, I might have been blinded by that. But also, you have to think, like we said, this is before we were in the hobby. This is before you had bought Scythe and we actually got into the hobby. So really, before this, our actual hobby board game experience was like Catan, Dominion, and I don't know what else.
Acro-Tyranny,
Carcassonne.
Maybe. Yeah,
it's like that was it. Legends of Andor, maybe. So like we had
Citadel.
almost no bar. We had almost no. Our expectations were not being determined by actual relevant experience in the board game hobby world. And so in retrospect, it's like now if this game came out in 2022 and I funded it and got it, I would instantly be disappointed after one play because I've played so many other games now.
Better reference.
Literally, maybe even hundreds, multiply. Multiply, not a word, by the way.
Multiply.
But back then, dude, we were still novices. Like we didn't know nothing yet. about the board game world. Really,
That's how they get you, man.
It
They're
must
like,
have
check
been-
out our Kickstarter.
They're seeking
It's
out the
gonna be so
noobs.
cool.
Yeah.
You've heard of Catan, haven't you? Well, this is like that, but better.
So much better. And so I feel like that's why. And it's not a terrible game. It's just like it's not super strategic, and it's under this guise of being strategic, and you think it is until you play it a few times, and you're like, it's actually really not that.
Well,
strategic.
it's really shallow. My thing I always go on
There's
for
There's only one track.
Well, there's one
strategy.
track. The game has resources, right? There's 4 different resources. It's like
They're all the same.
population, food, wood, and maybe ore or something. The thing is, if you're going to have different resources in a game, they have to function a little differently. They have to have a balancing system, right? Like in a Catan, for example. Wood is most common for starting off your civilization. You're going to use that to expand with roads. You're going to use that also for getting your settlements to get more resources. But then ore is like the advancement resource. So that's how you get development cards. It's the only way you can build cities. So there's kind of this hierarchy, or at least just different uses for the resources. In Arab Kingdoms, there is absolutely no function. It's just
Nope.
There's
They're
a-
indiscriminately the same.
yeah, there's basic cards that require one of those 4 resources, and then there's like advanced cards that require 2 of that same specific resource.
Yeah, 100%.
And like 4 different, and then the most advanced is just
So
it's sad.
But I feel like the game itself, I still enjoyed it quite a bit. And I enjoyed it enough, A, that it didn't make this list, and I didn't forget about it. I did think about it.
Oh, okay.
And B, that I'm keeping my copy. I'm not taking it with me
Really?
when I move in the future. I'll probably keep it in a tub. Like, I'm going to keep a tub of like knickknacks, keepsakes, whatever at my
Way at the
parents' house.
bottom of your basement, like in the corner.
Yeah. I feel like I will pull this game out again, maybe 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road when I have kids.
That's a commitment right there, man.
It is. Like I said, it's in a box in a basement, and it will be for a long time. But it is kind of special still because it's the first game the only game we've kickstarted. We do have a little piece of it to ourselves that we, helped create. And it's not an atrociously bad game. I still find it enjoyable, even though I recognize the fact that there is a one-track strategy, and it's really not designed very well.
Yeah.
I think it's enjoyable enough, and I would be okay teaching it to my kids in the future at a young age. Once they get to once they're above the age of 2, they'll probably recognize that it's a terrible game. But
gosh.
there's a window there.
Game today, yeah.
So that's I respect the pick.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, all that to say for me, as I keep providing context for it's not a garbage game. It's just I'm the least thankful for it because I'm the most disappointed by it.
Let down.
Yes.
But, yeah. That reminds me, in the future, if we do end up doing a top 10 games of 2022,
Which we will.
I feel like, and maybe we won't end up doing this, I feel like we should do not just our top 10 games, like just pulling them from our top 100 and ranking them, but actually our top 10 expectations met games. Like,
Interesting.
how was our expectation for the
Middle
game
range.
versus where did it actually hit? So basically
Okay.
the opposite of what you did for this.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can talk about it, but it's a thought.
I thought you were going to say just top 10 disappointment games.
I would rather do top 10 games.
Or top 10 games you're most excited about. But yeah.
But I feel like that's better than just saying, well, here's my top 10 games from 2022, and then I'll just pull them from my top 100 and just they're in that order.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of lame, but whatever.
I think that is a stellar,
You heard it.
if not mediocre idea.
Okay. You know what I never noticed, Cody? The lake around Riften
Yeah.
looks
What
like
about
it looks like a blue whale.
Do you think it's meant to be that?
I don't know. Just got a little
What else do you
Skyrim
see up
trivia
there?
for you.
Point out one other interesting thing for me from the Skyrim map that's behind my head.
One other very interesting thing, Cody, is that the island of Solstheim is not on there.
That's because it's far away, bro.
And it's a map of Skyrim. All right. Well, that's enough Skyrim talk for one episode.
I suppose so.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this podcast of Tabletop Shop. We definitely appreciate your listen. And if you want to contact us, you can reach out to us at tabletopshop23@gmail.com. Also, tabletopshop23 is our Instagram handle. Tabletop Shop on Facebook. You can find us all those places, or on YouTube also.
All places.
So if you just want to reach out to us, let us know how you feel about the podcast. If you have suggestions or things you don't like or recommendations or whatever, we appreciate any and all feedback.
And Nate, again, it's Thanksgiving. Bro. Look me in the eyes for a second. I just wanted to say I am thankful for the listeners listening to this podcast.
You know what, Cody? I'm thankful for those listeners.
That's good.
Thank you.
And remember, consider researching a game before you buy it. Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this, then you're pretty cool. And Nate and I like cool people. And so if you're listening to this, then you must be cool. So anyways, episodes release every other week. Cool. Peace.